I think it's better when you don't have to cover up for anybody. You don't have to cater to anybody with your play calls. You don't have to, cover for anybody. The quarterback doesn't have to be the sixth offensive lineman. And that's essentially
I've been
what it's
talking
been
that
here.
for a while, man. I know the feeling. I don't get it. It's so insane. Why do
Yeah,
you
because
like
that's
to
what people don't
handicap?
understand on this team. For the last 3 years, the Dolphins have been playing with six offensive linemen, while everybody else plays with five. The Dolphins have to play with six. The sixth guy is Tua. He's getting rid of it soon. He's moving his feet. He's getting off of the spot. He's helping his offensive line, and it's just so long that you could just and you could see it last year. Teron Armstead was pretty healthy last year. He played 15 games.
Yeah, no.
If you watched last year, they tend to do the same thing almost every single game. They would cut Teron loose. They would tell him, "You got your man. You're
Lock
getting
slow.
no help, not even on your inside shoulder." And we're devoting all these resources everywhere else to help
Yep.
everybody else.
Yep.
And then Tua's actually covering for everybody else as well because he's moving off the spot. If Teron gets beat, he's going to get killed. Okay. So they're trusting Teron. If Teron is not there, now it's a little bit different. It has to be a little bit more balanced. So you're going to have to help on the inside shoulder of Paul. You're going to have to help on the inside
Yep.
shoulder of Austin Jackson. And then you're going to have to help on either side of Aaron Brewer. So it stands to reason, and it makes a lot of sense that you would double up at offensive guard. I like James Daniels. Why they haven't spent a little bit of money on that other spot at left guard, I have no idea.
Tavon Jenkins signed for 3.2, 1 million more than Eichenberg.
Yeah, although I'm not a big fan of Tevin Jenkins. He's the guy who busted out at tackle. He's at his second position. He has some good tape, but not great tape. Guy I'm looking at is Will Hernandez. Like, why Will Hernandez is still out there? Daniel Brunskill is still out there. Brandon Scherf is still out there.
Yeah.
I would offer Will Hernandez $3 million a year and hope that he signs on the dotted line. He's 29 years old, really good anchor. That like one thing's noticeable. First of all, he's big. He's 6'2", 335 pounds. Now you watch him, he does move people. You can call leads with him.
Yeah.
So that's gonna help. What I love of is his anchor, man.
How's his
Like,
outside zone though and his feet in that?
oh, that's his problem.
Yeah.
But remember that Sean McVay is telling you what Mike McDaniel's gonna do tomorrow. And they kind of
And
moved
it,
away a little bit from
yeah.
that on the interior.
Yep.
And I don't mind having a brute next to two
Well,
guys that can actually
yeah.
have
Well,
really good that have really good moving skills.
you could have put him next to Paul, who's a brute, and you have one side that's the brute and one side's the movers. I mean, that would make sense. What doesn't
Yeah.
make sense is Eichenberg anywhere starting. Don't tell. Do you think that guy's got a chance to start? And you think they're envisioning that? Because if they, my personal opinion is I'm dour. You said a lot of stuff in our little talk before that gave me some real hope. I'm not going to share it, but I feel really good about that. But I'm still dour. I still think that Greer is going to go offensive line, maybe fourth round, and that's not a guy who's going to start right away. And I think that they can Paul Eichenberg, Brewer, Daniels, and Jackson. I'm hoping.
I think you can find a starter in the third round. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna. I don't know if he's gonna spend the pick on that though.
Like what's his name? Rutledge from Georgia.
You think he goes to the third? I thought it would be me out in the second.
Maybe Miles Frazier is a possibility as well from
Got to get
LSU.
there.
Those are all tight, man. Those are tight. Dolphins have two really, really good picks, man. Like it's gonna be damn near impossible to screw up 13 and 48. You know
No,
what I mean?
no, no,
The
no.
thing is that some say, oh, but what if they take a running back? But sometimes you have it's just it's an opportunity, right? And if Ashton Janty is there at 13 and they start thinking about what they can do with this offense if they have that piece, that could be attractive as well.
I
You
love
know,
Gianti, but I mean, you got two false on right. You'd have Gianti the 13th, and HN he could be play that maybe down the road the Hill thing. I just think that you're so desperate at D tackle. You're desperate pretty much at safety. You're really desperate at corner because are you going to rely on Cam Smith? I mean, Kohu. I mean, we forgot about talk about Artie Burns. He could be maybe a little piece, but you need a boundary corner. So I think, first two rounds is going to be DB, and then DI. I think if they don't do that, they're going to have severe problems. But I don't know what the long term
Yeah, like
vision.
if somebody's taking bets on that, I would bet big money that 13 and 48 are in some order. And I would say 13 defensive back and 48 defensive tackle
That's what I think too.
because defensive tackle, man, like there's a lot of guys you like,
Oh yeah, there's some
And
guys that can fall too.
at 48, you're getting whatever's leaking out of the first round. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So you
yeah.
could get like a really, really good player at 48. And depending on what people start thinking, look, I have a different view than most. A lot of people don't like Kenneth Grant because he hasn't played a
Oh,
lot of snaps.
I like him.
I say turn on the tape.
Yeah,
Like, I can't promise you he's going to play 1,000 snaps next year,
no.
but I think he could play 600.
The only thing that bothered me was he only did 225 22 times. I was totally shocked.
Yeah.
And for me, I love those the nose tackle, great nose tackles. I wanted Will Falk, we didn't get him. I wanted Nagata, we didn't get him. I liked Vita Vea, we didn't get him. We went with Minka. I liked Lawrence, we didn't get him. I liked Sweat, we didn't get him. But all those guys, if I do recall correctly, were all in the high 20s, over 30s for their bench. And I'm not saying it's the thing, but I was a little shocked. I mean, I was nothing. I was 185 and I did 16 to 20. I don't know how. Maybe he's got really long arms or something. I don't think it's destroys him, but I like him a ton. I would love to
Another
get that
guy,
good zero.
a guy that I really like, man, and it just came out, on his at his pro day, he was wearing a boot. So now we got to find out what that's about. Is Alfred Collins of Texas? He's the best
Wow,
run. He's the best run defender in the entire draft.
I like
You
that.
know,
What
and he has that size.
some of the viewers really love Nolan, Walter Nolan. I haven't really watched too much of him. I
Well,
heard he's got
Walter Nolan is a redo on, in my opinion, of Christian Wilkins.
yeah,
You know,
that's what I heard. Except
high motor
stronger,
guy. You
stronger. I
know,
heard.
but the production, man, it's kind of lacking there. You know what I'm saying?
Is it really?
Yeah, it's like you would expect a little bit more from him. I'll give you a guy that I think is going to be a
Give him, give him,
pretty.
give him.
I think a guy that's going to be a pretty good player, man. And I have him here in my notes. Let
His
me get him for
notes. He
you.
knows how to pronounce guys' names. He's smooth with the transition. There was, man, Alf. We gotta get
And
you Alf
I've been
class.
digging on this to see, like, is a possibility that this guy could actually drop Derek Harmon
Oh
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oregon,
You think you can fall that
6'5",
far?
310 pounds. He's a physical freak. I don't know if you've seen his numbers.
Yeah.
But he moved that weight and ran a 4.940. Like that's
He's like
insane.
310, I think, or 315.
Yeah, 310. I think that he kind of, I wouldn't say he's a perfect complement to Zach Sealer, but man, you put that guy next to Zach Sealer and you're playing a lot of flex alignments, or you can play him in the 3 tech, and maybe you find yourself a zero a little bit later on in the draft. He could spell Sealer. I think he got a little something there, right? You have two guys that have kind of the same build with the same motor.
The, 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 the,
I'm
the
kind of
thing
digging that.
the thing for me is, and we would go back to your Grant, why I wanted Sweat desperately last year, and why I want Grant. To an extent, I was a little concerned about the bench. When you got a guy, look, we're mimicking the Ravens. They got Jones, and they used to have Fields. All that stuff funnels the blocks into that A gap, and then it starts making everything else lighter as it extends out to the B and the C and all that. And Sealer, if you watch him when he's in the 2, 1, or 0, he's such a fighter, but his hip always buckles and he loses that control because he's so tall. He is so good in the 3, 4, 5. And if you could get a guy that's dominant at that 0 and 1, I mean, a real beefcake that's going to pull it, frees everything up. You get open holes for blitzes. It would open up the chop. But if you can't man that 0, then all those extra blocks flow outside. And we got a lot of guys that struggle getting off blocks. Love Brooks, he struggles getting off blocks. Sealer doesn't. Sealer's awesome. Chubb does. Phillips, I don't know he's going to be. Kamara struggles. We struggle in the run defense. But if you get that monstrous 0, if we had Sweat on this team, You know what Seal would do at that 3 and 5? To me, it's because that's what it's about now, man. This move to pass balance, attacking those A and B gaps. Not even you don't have to be successful, but you got to pull the leverage down. I was looking through the draft. Alfred Collins was a guy I liked later on. He's pretty big. He's like 330, I think, or something like that, 340. You need a guy like that. I don't like the 300-pound guys in there trying to do doubles. Sometimes you can get it, but they just wear out. You need that size. So if we could find that 0-1, it would help this defense, keeping everybody clean. Those guys keep everybody clean, especially them linebackers. I'm dying for one of them, man. It's been like the white whale since Wilfork. Anyway, sorry, I had a tirade.
No, I completely agree with you. Like, that's something that this team, like, they're missing that right now, right?
Yep.
Like that. Yep. Like I put it on Twitter what they need and what they're missing, and like I said, man, if they just hit bingo from now on, okay, and they bring in Raekwon, let's say, and Calais is back, and Emmanuel Ogba's back on a 1 year. Yeah, you have you have the shell of it. You still need 2 more guys.
Yeah.
You don't have a guy to play 0, 1, and 3 opposite of Zach Sealer. And you probably need a guy to back up all of the above. So
yeah, Grant. I don't. Some people are saying they think we'll go for Grant at 13. I don't see that at all. That's not really. That's not really.
They had a very big presence at Michigan, but I would caution people against that. Against reading too much into that. Michigan has Will Johnson, and Will Johnson is a guy that if he's there at 13, he basically drafts himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all this talk, everything that we're doing right here is probably a waste of time if Will Johnson just somehow drops to 13.
Why do I see him dropping so much? I see him dropping on all these
because people look at him as one-dimensional. The problem is that one dimension is great. Yeah, he's a perimeter corner. Yeah, but he's a really good perimeter corner.
Yeah. There's a lot of good opportunities for us at 13. You got Barron, you like Campbell, you like Starks. Do you still see Starks as a possibility at 13?
Look, man, the only thing that dinged them a bit were his combine numbers, but then you start digging into his drill numbers, and he actually plays a lot faster.
That's key.
Actually faster than anybody else, including Nick Emmanwori.
Really?
And then you look at the production, and it's been consistently there, although he didn't have a great season this past season. And then you look at the alternatives, right? I believe that there's a pretty big drop-off from those top 2 guys to the rest of the class. And I like a few of the other guys in the class. But as far as guys that could do everything, man, Malachi Starks and Nick Emmanwori are 2 guys that you can pretty much trust to do pretty much everything. Now, here's the thing. I think that Weaver is going to get a pretty big say on this. And I can't shake the fact that the more you look at Nick Emmanwori, that I'm looking at Kyle Hamilton, a more athletic Kyle Hamilton.
The reason for is big on that guy. He turned me on to him, and then obviously his combine numbers freaked me out. Those are freakish numbers.
Yeah, and his size, But I just have it in my head that Anthony Weaver, and speaking of Greer, he's going to have a really, really good line into this because he has a pretty good connection at South Carolina. But I have it in my head that Anthony Weaver's going to look at this more and more and is going to say, man, what a good fit Nick Emmanwori would be, and the compliments that he would have to him. Like, if Anthony Melifonwu and Ashton Davis, like, they're essentially tailor-made to play with somebody like that,
I think if we don't take him, and he falls to the Vikings, they're taking him. I think that Flores would love to work with. That'd be a perfect guy for him.
Yeah, and Malachi Starks also makes a lot of sense as well,
Yeah.
So either one, man, either one.
Thing is with Malachi, he's a little bit smaller, and if you want to play that joker role, you want to like they do with Hamilton, even though they moved him to free safety now, they played him over the top now. I'd say Emmanwori is probably better. 220, 438. That's just like I can't even. And it was a 2 or 3 vertical.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's insane. And it's literally 10 inches higher than Malachi Starks. I got to check the tape, though, and see what it is, the pads. Because those guys are not wearing pads, too. So, when I played, my 40 numbers were like, okay, but I never changed my speed. when I put the pads on, I just ran well with pads. Some guys, they put good combine numbers on and then they put the pads on and they're not the same. It's like they're all.
Yeah, you got to remember that as much information as we can gather, and we can gather plenty, we don't have what the teams do. The teams have that catapult data.
Oh yeah, and
So
I'm
they know.
sure.
So
I'm
they
sure
know.
they're using AI on it too. I'm sure they're checking the numbers in the combine and then having the AI check it in game. And
Yeah, they're checking the players in games this year. They'll know how fast they were moving against Vanderbilt. Okay, like they'll know if a guy was playing at 19 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour. So they could look at the combine and say, all right, this guy worked out through the chart, up, off the charts. But look at this other guy who didn't work out as well. He was clocked at 20 miles an hour running to the perimeter.
Yep.
While this guy that worked out great was clocked at 19 miles an hour running to the perimeter. One guy actually does play faster. So they'll be able to do things like that.
They got AI so implemented in this stuff, man. I would love to be a fly on the wall and see what they're using AI for as far as like their studies and their evaluations. It must be insane.
And they also have a lot of advanced statistics that are going to help them fill out the picture.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that I thought was great. You know who the leading rusher in college football was this past year, right?
Jeanty, right?
It was Ashton Jeanty, right? Do you know who the fourth leading rusher was in college football this past season?
No, I don't.
This is what makes the stat so great. The fourth leading rusher in college football this past season was Ashton Jeanty after contact. The one thing that I do not agree with, because everybody keeps looking at all these guys and saying, "Oh, but we're going to move him to left guard right away." Look, the surefire way to actually ruin that draft pick is to take a guy and then ask him to do something he's never done before.
Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceBread.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.